Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. This is the weekly news wrap up for Friday, December 11th, 2020, the WNW 461. Looks like YouTube has gone into full-blown censorship mode. And I just want to start with this because I think this is a huge deal because, there's billions of views every week on YouTube. And a lot of people covering the election, like myself, are using YouTube. But here's what they came up with, that YouTube will remove videos questioning Biden election video even as legal challenges continue. I'll talk about the big legal challenge, Texas suing the 4 battleground states. I'll talk about that in a minute. And this is what they say. YouTube says, for example, we will remove video claiming that a presidential candidate won the election due to widespread software glitches or counting errors. We will begin enforcing this policy. Let me continue with this. This is important. I want to read exactly what they say. I don't want to get it wrong. Today, and we will ramp up in the weeks to come. As always, news coverage and commentary on these issues can remain on our site if there's sufficient education, documentary, scientific, or artistic content. Okay, well, I guess this is, I analyzed the news, so, hopefully this will stay on. This, to me, smacks of desperation. I mean, it's no secret that big tech wants Biden to win for whatever reason. That's the way it appears to me. And it appears this way to a lot of folks. So, I think this might be a reaction to the mounting evidence. In Wisconsin, it was supposed to be Thursday. It's going to be Friday, another hearing where videos and affidavits, and I think there's more than 1,000 affidavits where people witnessed actual, what they say is fraud, irregularities, law breaking. It's just unbelievable, the dearth of evidence. And now you see the media cherry picking little things, see if they can take this down. 50 lawsuits have been settled already. They've been, thrown out of court. Well, most of these are Obama appointed judges. And they won't hear the cases. I mean, Arizona, even with all the cases there, people voting from out of state, and I don't think something like 35,000 illegals voting, and just unbelievable mounting evidence. And now, Arizona is now contesting the election results in the certification, the legislature, which is all Republican. But they actually said there is no election fraud or voter fraud. Wow. But they won't even hear the evidence. It's a conspiracy theory. It's, there's no basis for it. There is no election fraud. It's just, false allegation. It's just, wow. It's just unbelievable. You can't even question it. Which brings us to the first ever of its kind lawsuit. And they're not alleging fraud. They're alleging that happened as a result of the intentional dumbing down and law breaking of the restrictions. And let's just hear. Texas filed a lawsuit against the 4 swing states, just 4 of the swing states. It's Wisconsin, it's Michigan, it's Georgia, and it's Pennsylvania. And the basic premise of this, Texas, is, listen, there should be equal protection under the law. Texas and many other states followed the laws set forth by the state legislature. In the Constitution, it says the state legislature and only the state legislature makes election law. You can't write a decree in the executive branch, then you can't get sued and take it to the judicial branch and have them throw holy water on it. This is what happened with Governor Wolf in Pennsylvania. He tried to get it to the legislature, no dice. Consent decree, they were sued, and then the kangaroo Supreme Court there said, "Oh yeah, no, it's okay. We can have it 3 days after the election. We can not have signature verification." Listen, the dumbing down and the intentional dumbing down of security for these mail-in ballots was done outside of the law set forth by the state legislature, which means they're unconstitutional. That's what Texas is saying. And this is either a yes or a no. Is it constitutional? Is it not? A X or a Y, a 1 or a 0. That's it. Did what they do was it unconstitutional? Did they break did they follow their election laws and rules set forth by the legislature? And clearly they didn't. It's not up for debate. They changed it. They changed it in Pennsylvania. They changed it in Georgia. The Governor Kemp, a Republican, made a deal, consent decree. They weren't going to do any signature checking. That's the one theme throughout all of this. They broke various sundry different rules and they're set forth by their elections, but they weakened the security of the mail-in ballots. They sent them out willy-nilly. They broke their own rules there, but they also have no signature verification. That's the one consistent thing through all the states. Can't verify any signatures. They won't do that. The press won't talk about that. They're just unfounded. There's not enough votes to make a difference. It's a conspiracy theory. Donald Trump's telling lies. This is a simple question of equal protection. Texas is saying, hey, we followed our laws. We followed the law set forth by the legislature of the state of Texas. And many other states did the same thing. I think 19 or 20 other states have jumped in on the side of Texas. Now attorney generals from blue states are jumping in on the side of Pennsylvania because they're being sued. Here's how Pennsylvania responded. This was a weighty filing. Had a lot of examples, a lot of hard evidence, facts, figures, not gray area. Did they or did they not follow the election laws laid out by the legislature? Clearly they didn't. And you can't change them with a governor's rule or a Supreme Court kangaroo court ruling. You can't do it. Even Pennsylvania told one individual who was suing, well, you should have sued before. Well, you didn't. It wasn't damaged before. How can you sue before you have damages? Now there are the damages. But here's Pennsylvania's response. Pennsylvania responds to Texas Supreme Court case says it's bogus and seditious. They also say Pennsylvania responded to the Supreme Court lawsuit at the Supreme Court, Texas law at the Supreme Court, this is Pennsylvania's, Thursday, legally indefensible and an affront to the principles of constitutional democracy. Really? Texas is alleging that Pennsylvania didn't follow its own election rules. And they changed them. They changed them to make them weaker so they could count more illegal votes. That's basically the crux of the story. And that's what the case is before the Supreme Court. And it's like 20 states on Texas side. And there's several states on the Pennsylvania side. The Supreme Court's going to take this. It's a constitutional question. Since Election Day, state and federal courts throughout the country have flooded with frivolous lawsuits, they say they're frivolous, aimed at disenfranchising large swaths of voters and undermining the legitimacy of the election. It's quite the opposite, but this is what they say. The state of Texas has now added its voice to a concatenate of bogus claims, Pennsylvania, in its court filing. It's just unbelievable. So, wow, this is basically its answer. It's bogus and seditious, and it's illegitimate, basically. That's just unbelievable. And just to let you know, too, that in the Texas filing, they talked about odds of winning, and it was just really astronomical odds of winning, going in just before they stopped vote counting. All these votes popped up. They didn't have any Republicans, or very few, or they weren't very close, but they kicked them out where they couldn't view. That's a security measure. When people can view and say, hey, wait a minute, let's put this off to the pile. We'll have to rule on this later. Oh, there's no signature there. That can't count. Well, they had a very small rejection rate. Super small. Let's just use Georgia, for example. In Georgia, they had, in 2016, they had 213,000 roughly mail-in ballots. Okay, and they had about a 6.5% rejection rate. That was 80,000 ballots would have been rejected. Would have been rejected. Okay, and were rejected in 2016. Okay, so listen to this, man. And so in 2020, there were 1.3 million mail-in ballots. Now, again, they sent these things out willy-nilly, which is another security feature. People should be asking for them. And again, they don't want to do signature verification and do an actual audit. Georgia says, oh, we counted the votes twice. We've counted it again and recertified. They're just counting the fraud over and over again. They don't want to check signatures because, oh, well, we have a consent decree. We don't have to check them. The consent decree, the governor can't change election law. The Supreme Court can't change election law. This is what this is about. So if that's the case, if they weren't constitutional, those elections were invalid. Wow. And that throws it right to the state legislatures. And each one of the states being sued. Wisconsin, House and Senate controlled by Republicans. Michigan, House and Senate controlled by Republicans. Pennsylvania, House and Senate controlled by Republicans. Georgia, House and Senate controlled by Republicans. They can reallocate the electors the way they want. They can take control if they think the election has been corrupted. And there's lots of evidence. And we're not even talking about Dominion voting machines, changing the votes, flipping the votes, votes being counted overseas, thumb drives being put in. We're not even talking about that. We're not even talking about the stats of it. Did they or did they not follow the election laws, these 4 states being sued by Texas? Did they follow the election laws laid out in the state legislature? And the answer is clearly no. This is what the Supreme Court's going to hear. Ted Cruz is going to be the one arguing it. He's argued 9 other cases in front of the Supreme Court. He was Judge Rehnquist's law clerk for a little bit over a year. He's a hitter. One of the Democrats called him a sad sack. Really? Dershowitz, who's a big-time Democrat, said Ted Cruz was his most impressive, smartest, best, whatever you want to call it, student while all his years at Harvard. Ted Cruz, who was also Attorney General. He's a senator from Texas, also Attorney General in the state of Texas. Ted Cruz was. So in 2020, 1.3 million mail-in ballots. There was only 213,000 in 2016. 1.3 million. So if they would have had 80,000 rejections with a normal rejection rate, instead the rejection rate was 0.2% instead of 6.5%. I mean, what's the exponent of that? You have 1.3 million, 5 times that. What, 400,000? 400,000 would be rejected. The margin of victory for Biden in Georgia with all the mail-in ballots and all the shenanigans going on and no signature matching. Again, this is a consistent theme through all those states. They don't want to match signatures. This is all about just the ballots and how they did it and what the security measures were and whether or not they were weakened. Did they follow the state legislatures, which had much stronger security measures in the ballots, like checking signatures, multiple checks on signatures? They didn't. They don't want to. They certified, go away, there's no fraud. That's what they're saying. But 1.3 million in 2020 in Georgia, what would that be, 5 times the amount that was in, at 2016? So if it was 80,000, 5 times 8, well, that's 400,000. Nope, don't want to check signatures. Will not do it. Governor will not do it, Republican. They won't do it in Arizona either. That's another Republican governor, Ducey. What's going on with that? And the other states have Democrats. Well, Donald Trump has also joined this lawsuit along with, 19 or 20 other states. And here he's in there. This is state of Texas, Commonwealth. This is Donald Trump, getting involved in this lawsuit, joining the lawsuit. And I want to read this to you, and it's going to take a little bit, but it lays it out perfectly. And it's not my opinion. It's the legal opinion joining the lawsuit with Texas about the unconstitutionality of the states intentionally weakening the security measures for mail-in ballots and not following state election laws, various sundry, but that's a big one, state election laws. Therefore, if they didn't follow and I say this again, I know I'm repeating myself, if they didn't follow the laws laid out by the state legislator, according to the Constitution, and only the state legislature sets the rules and the laws for elections, period. Not the judiciary, not the executive branch, boom, only the state legislators. And they also handle the electoral college votes. So I want to read this to you. It's not that long. This is Donald Trump's team. Creating rules by litigation, executive officials can be done in certain contexts, but a presidential election is not one of them. Only state legislatures can make such rules. The public record demonstrates a ballot counting project replete with chaos, confusion, and partisan bias, throwing the GOP electors out so they couldn't, see what they were doing. So they couldn't see them counting the mail-in ballots. They couldn't question them, and they couldn't confront them, and they couldn't basically throw any of them out. These things on their own do not create a constitutional crisis. A true constitutional crisis arises when non-legislative officials seek to change the rules of the game in a manner that is contrary to the dictates of the Constitution. A pronouncement, "we played by the rules," quote, "we played by the rules," end quote, rings hollow when the persons making such claims change the rules in an unauthorized manner. Again, this is Donald Trump's attorneys, in effect, Donald Trump. Whatever doubt there is about fraud by voters or political operatives, there is no doubt that the officials of the defendant states changed the rules of the contest in an unauthorized manner. That's the whole key right there. Was the election constitutional? I mean, this is widespread rule changing, which the president said resulted in his tweets widespread fraud. That's what the president says. A candidate for president of the United States and every citizen of this country are entitled to the Constitution to do something far better. They're entitled to an election where every lawful vote counts and that every effort to change the law in an unauthorized manner is met with a clear answer. Such actions are unconstitutional. Let's look at Gore versus Bush, the hanging Chad thing. That ended up being a equal protection under the law. That's what Texas is saying. Listen, we followed the rules. But it was Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia didn't follow their own rules. We followed the Constitution by following our rules. They didn't, and they didn't follow the Constitution. Those are invalid. Those elections are invalid. They go back to the legislature to assign the Electoral College votes. I'll tell you something else. I did a little bit of math. If Trump wins, if these are all invalid and the Republican legislatures give their Electoral College votes to Donald Trump, the rightful winner on election night, if you followed the election, he was way ahead. Folks, he was way ahead. Everybody stops at the same time, including Nevada and Arizona. They all stop at the same time. And when they open back up, boom, Donald Trump lost. All these votes came out. Wow. But Donald Trump, if he wins all 4 states, he gets 294 Electoral College votes. If they reassign the Electoral College votes. So they say, no, failed election, unconstitutional, legislatures run by Republicans in the House and Senate, and those 4 states being sued. Again, that's Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, all Republican, all the time. That's 294 votes. Even if, like Michigan with 16 votes, says, we're going to set this out. They don't have to give up the Electoral College vote. Trump still wins. Even if Pennsylvania decides, we're not going to give you the votes, Trump still wins. This is a lawsuit like no other ever been brought in the ever. I mean, the Gore Bush thing came down to an equal protection under the law. They wanted they wanted to count just 4 Democrat counties that Gore killed it in on the basically east coast of Florida. And then eventually Gore wanted the whole state recount. And Scalia came in and said, yes, a lot of these ballots a lot of these votes are even cast legally. And also there's a whole equal protection under now you're going to have a manual count, and some people are going to say, oh, this is good. And other people are going to say the same ballot, oh, this is no good. So boom, Bush won. This is that case, equal protection under the law on steroids. This has nothing to do with fraud, whether they cheated, Dominion voting machines, the questions there, flipping, glitches. It had nothing to do with that. Did these 4 states follow the election rules laid out by their legislature? And clearly, they did not. The question is going to be, what's the remedy? We're going to invalidate the election for those 4 states? Maybe. Is it going to go back to the House of Representatives or in the Senate in each of those states, the state legislature? Maybe. Is the Supreme Court going to say, what cities broke the law? Did the whole state break the law? Giuliani said the whole state didn't break the law. It was just cities like Atlanta, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Detroit, Milwaukee, Madison. What happens if the Supreme Court says, all those votes in those cities, boom, pow, they're out. They're done. Whatever votes came out of there, they're done. They're so corrupt, they're done. Trump still wins. This is some fight, but it all comes down to a very simple idea. What those states did by weakening these laws, willfully weakening the security laws for example, signature checking and a forensic audit to make sure that who was voting was eligible to vote, which they didn't do. The rejection rate in all these states is tiny. And again, Georgia, 0.2% or 3, something like that, when the normal 6.5%. And then that's just comparing it to 2016, when it was 5 times more mail-in ballots. It's outrageous. Jay Sekulow came out about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And actually, Amanda Grace, Christian woman Amanda Grace said, she thinks Jay Sekulow is going to play a key role in this. Well, I heard her say that, and I thought, wow, he kind of came out and said, well, we could be suing in 30 states. I thought, that's weird. 30 states, and poof, you didn't hear about the president's attorney, Jay Sekulow, who's a Messianic Jew, incidentally, believes in Christ. And you just didn't hear anything from him. You saw Rudy Giuliani and Jenna Ellison, and then there's some stories on about Sidney Powell. They're all working their cases. She was doing the electronic side. Rudy was doing the ballot side, mostly some, stuff with the voting machines. But, they were all putting out mountains of evidence and affidavits, sworn testimony, and they were just going out. No Jay Sekulow. What happened to Jay Sekulow? And all of a sudden, bam, Texas has this suit. What these people did, these 4 states, wasn't constitutional. Is that what Jay Sekulow was working on? Maybe. He didn't quit. That's the case of all cases right there. The Supreme Court's going to have to take it. It's like, you play football all your life, you make it to the Super Bowl, and, I'm going to sit this out. I don't want to play in the Super Bowl. No. This is a Super Bowl case. This is what Supreme Court judges live for. Roe v. Wade, Brown versus the Board of Education, Texas versus Pennsylvania. This is huge. So, and I wanted to bring this up too. Just some stories that's working on. This is a lot deeper than just Democrats and Republicans. I think there are foreign actors involved in this. Here's just some headlines. I just want to read this to you. Headlines. These are bona fide director of national intelligence, DNI. He's Clapper's counterpart. He is the, over the CIA, NSA, FBI. He's over all the intelligence, okay? DNI John Raft. China's penetration of government networks significant and growing every day. Let me just read this off to you, so pay attention. I just put them together for you. Major national security issues identified related to China's connection to Dominion voting machines. Evidently, they have some parts in there, software, some things there. They're involved in Dominion. This is a good one. Chinese spy raised money for Democrat Representative Eric Swalwell. Planted, quote unquote, intern in his congressional office. Whoop, not talking about that. Remember this one? Hunter Biden under federal investigation over his business dealing with China in tax affairs. Tax affairs, right? Bill Barr kept this under wraps. This investigation was going on. Of course, Bill Barr, who was rumored to that he was going to quit, has come out and said, I'm going to stay on as long as the president needs me to do nothing. He's a top head that's going to roll when Trump reverses this, and I think he will. But Hunter Biden under federal investigation, widely reported this one. I mean, all the mainstream press was telling us, "Oh no, that's nothing to that. That's debunked." That's another one of their favorite words. It was debunked. Oh yeah, okay, right. I guarantee you that if his daddy becomes president, that case comes nowhere. But we all know it's not going to happen. Okay. Here we have Pompeo warns governors, and this was earlier this year. This is the beginning of this year. This is Secretary Pompeo. He warns governors of Chinese infiltration into U.S. It's happening in your state. You think that might have happened in some places like, I don't know, Georgia and Arizona? I mean, those are Republicans there. Or could it happen in Pennsylvania? Could it happen in places like Wisconsin? I don't know. It's... Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said this back in the earlier of the year, in February. And then you have this from the FBI director, Christopher Wray, another do-nothing guy into the election fraud. The Chinese espionage tech theft is the greatest long-term threat to U.S. economy, says Christopher Wray, FBI director. That's back also in February of this year as well. So just all these different, headlines. And, was this really more of an attack with co-conspirators inside of America and help from outside of America? I don't know. The big question, though, the big case is the constitutional case. Did these four states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia, did they follow their election laws as laid out by the legislature? And the answer is no. They changed them to their advantage. To the globalist new world, you think, oh, well, some of these guys are, Kemp is a Republican. Yeah, so is the Secretary of State. But are they compromised? I don't know. I have no idea, but the headlines are real. There are also another headline, I think the writer Chang says that, that China was bragging about, hey, they have people in the highest office of government. Wow. I mean, Hunter Biden got $1.5 billion. He was, kicked out of the Army for a cocaine problem, or kicked out of the Navy. And why would they give him $1.5 billion? He was the son of the vice president, who's now, as they say, falsely, I think, president-elect. Nobody's been chosen yet. That's fact. Nobody's been chosen yet. It's a contested election. One thing I wanted to get out real quick is that Donald Trump, the peacemonger that he is, has cut another peace deal with Morocco and Israel. Here we have another peace deal cut. Peace is better than war. So, and I'll tell you what, these folks that when this thing gets reversed, yes, that's right. I said when this thing gets reversed, the media is going to take a pounding. Expect the legacy media, the mainstream media, whatever you want to call it, the lying scumbags that are there. Yes, this includes Fox. The layoffs are going to be stunning. People like Chris Wallace, he's going to be the face of a big fat lie. Yeah, Chris, we don't need that $3 million salary. I don't know what he makes. But we don't need to pay you $3 million when people associate you with, a big scam. So we don't need you. We got a guy out of Detroit that we can pay $300,000 to be on our network television, and we can kind of bring him along. I think a lot of these folks are going to be toast. You're going to be the face of a big fat lie, on top of the big fat lie that, President Trump was a Russian spy, on top of the big fat lie that President Trump deserved to be impeached. This is going to be, this is unbelievable. But yes, I wanted to bring up the peace deal. That's a big deal. And it shows he's president. He's conducting his presidential duties. I want to talk to you about the economy. I like to because I want you to, I don't want everybody to be watching the election. Look over here, look over here, look over here, and then bam, look over here. 853,000 new claims for unemployment. Weekly claims, 853,000. Now, I think last week was 713,000. That's 140,000 more than last week. I just want you to take some risk off the table and don't hang yourself out. If you're going to buy a new car, Make sure you have a big down payment. Or if you're going to buy another car, try to get the title to it. Don't hang yourself out, because the COVID lockdowns are real, and I think they're going to intensify. We just had a new edict from our baby killer Cooper governor, who's now shutting everything down at 10 o'clock. There's a curfew, 10 o'clock, and now they're talking about you're not wearing a mask. You're out past 10 o'clock. We can fine you. I mean, this is Zig Heil stuff. Signs the papers. Where are you going? I mean, right? But no doubt that this jump in unemployment claims is because of the jump in COVID lockdowns. I mean, California, you have sheriffs revolting. In New York, you have people going to jail because they wanted to open a restaurant and sell food to people so they can make a living and feed their families. Keep voting Democrat. And then you have the stimulus bill, which was, I think Mnuchin offered Pelosi $916 billion, and it wasn't quite enough for unemployment. They wanted to send out another $1,200 round of checks. The Trump administration is thinking, well, maybe $600. And why? Are they just cheap? No, the dollar's down now. It's got another seal clubbing, on Thursday. It was down 20 basis points. It's down almost 4.5% since election day. You know what happens when the dollar devalues? Inflation goes up. Things cost more. And so, I mean, it was 90.65. I mean, that's wonk talk, but it's down, 4.5% in, 6 weeks. That's a lot for the world's reserve currency, where 67% of the 60 or 70% of the business is done. My weekly my interview, the Saturday Night Post, Rick Ackerman is going to come on. He's got some interesting things to say about how Trump could win it all. And he also was really smart with interest rates in the economy. For a while when interest rates looked like they were going for 2.5% or 3%, Ackerman came out and said, they're going to go down. Danged if they didn't. I think they hit a low around, 0.30, 0.3% for the 10-year Treasury bond. Then it hovered around 0.6 something percent. Now it's, up to 0.9%. I know 0.9, 0.6 doesn't seem a 30% increase in a few weeks. And you wonder why they're balking on this $916 trillion deal, and they want to cut it down and make it a little skinnier because they're afraid the dollar's going to crash. I talked to Bull Pony about this. He made big dollar calls. He's talking about Black Friday, and it dipped below a real key rate on Black Friday in November, last Friday in November, I believe it is. And he says, it's going to be, dollars, it could take a pounding. It could really take a dive. And then it might, nothing goes down in a straight line, but he says next week could be tough, and it's about faith and confidence. And let me tell you, when Trump overturns this thing, and I think he will, when he does, that's not going to stabilize things. The left is going to go crazy. The mainstream press, the legacy media, realizing they've got, pie in their face and the pizza smeared in their face, and they got creamed, they're going to go crazy too, trying to right this wrong. The left is going to go nuts. The left's going to go nuts on each other. Biden's already having trouble with the extreme, Green New Deal people, the Marxist communists. He's having a problem with that. I mean, we're going to get some really shaky things going on when this gets reversed. But watch this case with the Supreme Court. I think it's a no-brainer. Did they conduct their elections according to the Constitution and the laws of the legislature? The answer is clearly no. What's going to be the remedy? I don't know. I don't know. And all these, the mainstream media and big tech and big money, they all have one thing in common. They know who God is. They hate him. They hate him. I got this out of Romans. I never held this up, but somebody sent me a lovely King James Bible. It's beautiful. Big type. Lovely. But I had to go to church because, they shut all that down. So I've been reading a couple pages in the Bible. I started months ago, actually. I started with Matthew. Just read a couple of pages. I started with Matthew. I'm going to go back around to the beginning, but for some reason I started Matthew. I think it's my favorite. My favorite apostle. He's an accountant, and everybody hated him. The other apostles didn't like him. He was a tax collector. He was an accountant. And Jesus loved him. And, I love Matthew because leave it to the accountant to get it perfect. That's Matthew 28:18. All power in heaven and earth, or all authority, depending on the Bible, but same thing. All power, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me, says Jesus. That's who's in control, folks, not the devil. Unless you don't believe the words of Jesus Christ out of his mouth, red letter stuff. But I was reading, I've gotten all the way through, and just got through Acts and reading Romans, and I just kept coming back to this. And I'm thinking, this is today. This is it, right? So it's Romans, and I'm going to read this to you. It's Romans 1:21-22. Because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. Doesn't that describe big tech, big media, the Democrats, big money, Wall Street? Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. Can't make that up. That could have been written today. Romans 1:21-22. Listen, who are we kidding here? This was a coup. This was an electoral, treasonous, RICO, well-orchestrated attempt to overthrow the U.S. Constitution and through this election. Talk about disenfranchising voters. Really? I think that truth's going to win out. This is just too big to cover up. The Supreme Court is going to take it. And I'm not so sure it'll be a 6-3 case. Who knows what Roberts is going to do. I don't know if all the, quote, liberal judges are going to vote on the same side. I was talking about how, maybe Sotomayor may, she's Catholic, may vote with the conservatives. Somebody wrote me and said, it would be her. It'd be Kagan. Really? I think at least one Supreme Court judge will vote that way. In the Bush versus Gore, it was a 7-2 decision, and it was a 5-4 court back then. It was a 7-2 decision that that the equal protection under the law clause was broken. They just didn't know what the remedy was. The remedy was Bush won. They weren't going to count the votes equally, hanging chads, and new way to count votes. And some of the votes that they were counting were illegally cast, according to Scalia. So, but that's equal protection under the law. But this is a clear-cut case. They can throw dirt on it all they want. Call Ted Cruz a sad sack. I wouldn't want to be against him. He's not going to be intimidated by the judges. As a matter of fact, the judges may be a bit intimidated by him. We'll see. This is it. This is for all the marbles. This is and it does have nothing to do with fraud. Obviously, if you don't follow rules and you weaken the security controls, stuff like that happens. But that's not the case. Did they or did they not break with the Constitution by not following their own election laws laid out by the state legislature? That's what the evidence says. Yes, they broke. It's unconstitutional. So we'll see. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to keep praying. I want you not to fear. I want you to prepare yourself, because that's the tool and the weapon of the enemy. Fear, fear, COVID, fear. We're all going to die. Fear. Nothing you can do. It's all over. Fear. No, don't fear. Prepare yourself mentally, physically, above all spiritually. Fear not. God the Father, Son, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit are all firmly in control. Keep praying. Pray. Don't stop. Jesus is real. So's God and the Holy Spirit. They're all real, folks. What year is it? 2020. Only 2020 years of history in the world? Really? Or is the Earth 4 billion years old and something big happened 2020 years ago? Yeah. Thank you for your support and your comments. I appreciate it. Thank you for your donations. That helps us out. Just fear not and keep praying. And again, thank you for supporting USAWatchdog.com.